What is up, guys? Rick Kakas here, and today we have a bunch of brand spankin' new Destiny 2 news, courtesy of the Bungie Weekly update that has just gone live and unveiled a bunch of new official information. Pretty big day today. There's some really interesting stuff within this update, and actually earlier today there was an Anthem livestream that unveiled a bunch of new information as well, and there's some pretty interesting stuff you can find if you keep your eyes peeled. I'll be covering that tomorrow, but now we are focusing on this Bungie Weekly update. So first things first, guys, if you're looking to upgrade your headphones, definitely check out the link in the description down below. I've partnered with ASTRO so you can save some money and help the channel out. Definition of a win-win. Now, in terms of the update, the first thing that they talked about was, frankly, like the biggest news to come out of gaming as a whole in a while, and that was the split between Bungie and Activision. This almost never happens where you have a studio gain back its property, in this case Destiny, and become independent again, but it happened here. And Luke Smith, now Destiny franchise director Luke Smith, talked a little bit about this, firstly thanking Activision, High Moon Studios, and Vicarious Visions. Of course, Bungie splitting from Activision means that they're also kind of going to split from stuff like Vicarious Visions as well. And he talked about what is upcoming for Bungie and Destiny in the short term and the long term. He said, in the short term, we're continuing to build the content we've promised for the annual pass. We've learned a lot from Black Armory that we will apply to future releases. Most notably, that we like the beginning experiences of content drops to be a better point of convergence for the player base. In Black Armory, we set the power requirement for the first forge too high, and that meant it wasn't a great chance to jump in for some new content. We want to find the line between new content that many players can play and aspirational content for players to progress toward. We're exploring improvements to catch up mechanics for players in upcoming seasons. Then, for the long term, Bungie is committed to Destiny. We created the universe and we hold its future entirely in our hands. The vast majority of the team is hard at work envisioning the future experiences, enemies, and ways to play the Guardian you've been building since 2014. We're going to keep doing that. And frankly, this is very exciting news. This is going to, I think, really change the course of Destiny. I think for the better. I hope for the better. We are likely to see some crazy changes that maybe in the past Activision was scared to implement. That's too radical. That could be too crazy. The players, how will they accept this? But now, since Bungie has their independence, those things could be introduced. So again, very exciting news. Moving on from there, we have quite a lot of very practical news about the next big Sandbox update hitting the game. This time, Bungie focused on the changes to weaponry, both weapon archetypes and weapons overall, and exotic weapons. So, they say that their goals for this new update 2.1.4 are the following. Number 1, buff underutilized weapon archetypes. Number 2, adjust hot button weapons in PvP, including Telesto and Wavesplitter. And number 3, avoid PvP adjustments that will negatively impact PvE efficacy. So frankly, number 3, the fact that that's a goal that's so important, as a PvE mainly player myself, I'm very glad to see this. So, what specifically is changing? Well, first off, with auto rifles, damage increased for rapid fire, adaptive, and high impact families. We find that auto rifles are a little unforgiving in the ranges they ask you to occupy in a world with special weapons. As a result, we're increasing the damage to offset the higher risk. Hopefully it's a significant damage increase, like the 750 archetype and the 600 archetype. If they can actually gun you down, that's really going to help combat against shotgun apes, which is one of the most, frankly complained about features of the Crucible. So I'm very interested in those changes. Next up, for scout rifles, damage increased for lightweight and rapid fire families, as well as an increase to all scout rifles in PvE. Bless up. Scout rifles are always going to be on the lower end of damage due to the safety that their range affords you, but the difference currently between them and other primary weapons is too drastic. As a result, we're reducing the size of the gap. Moving on from there, sniper rifles. So, increased the damage on the rapid fire archetype to be able to kill in 2 body shots, big change. Although snipers are still finding success, we believe that allowing you to clean up a kill faster with a sniper rifle will allow the sniper to have that success at more ranges and in more situations. That's it for the weapon archetypes. And moving on from there, they talked about some exotic weapons being addressed. Firstly, Legend of Acreus. Increased the damage and bumped up the range slightly. As time moves on, things tend to trend upwards in terms of power. And in a post-Forsaken world, Acreus simply didn't have the output to match other heavy weapon exotics. I 100% agree with that. Acreus, especially since it is still a heavy shotgun, like it just doesn't come close in terms of usability. But if that is a significant damage increase, obviously it kills in one shot. The damage increase won't matter in PvP, but in PvE, if it's a significant one, we could see the Acreus start to get used quite a bit more often, especially with all of those weapon perks going around. Shotgun loader, stuff like heavy ammo finder, you are just generally getting ammo a little bit more often for those heavies, and having a shotgun that can just one bang big enemies, that could be very, very useful. But moving on from there, and this is a big one, the Telesto. So they say PvP damage brought down to match a standard fusion rifle charge rate. Optics zoom was also increased to match fusion rifles with long-range scopes. Telesto has become fairly notorious in the Crucible for its effectiveness, even in some cases getting accidental multi-kills due to how damaging the explosions were. To combat these, we're reducing its PvP damage to match its charge rate. And the fact they put PvP in brackets means that they're likely going to buff it in PvE to offset this. In any event, this brought up an issue where doing so was significantly hurting the usability of the weapon, so the optics were buffed in return. In general, you should still find an effective weapon, it just won't be quite as generous as it was before. We'll see. Telesto is a big part of the Crucible, and we'll see how these changes affect the weapon. Moving on from there, trace rifles. So, first off, increase the minimum amount of ammo you could receive from special ammo boxes. Trace rifles had a pretty rough time keeping ammo reserves in the Crucible as it doesn't have access to scavenger perks. You should have more success using it more often in the Crucible now, and the changes also affect PvE bricks, so you're going to have more ammo overall if you're using a trace rifle in PvE. In addition to that, they reduced the strength of the Wavesplitter in PvP. After the ammo changes noted above, Wavesplitter had one of its main weaknesses removed, so we've opted to bring it in line with the other trace rifles before this patch hit the public. Makes sense to me. Now, those are the changes they talked about landing on January 29th, but they actually had a segment of things they're looking at in the future. Quote, some topics we're looking at for future potential adjustments include trace rifle damage in PvE, submachine gun damage adjustments, shotgun adjustments, and taking a holistic look at the heavy slot options and how much of an impact it has on loadout choices for PvE content. We are always looking at what's currently in use and what isn't in use, as having more choices is always better than being locked into a narrow band. So, interesting little look at what could come after January 29th as well. But moving on from the sandbox changes, some more changes hitting the game with this update include changes to weapon forging introduced with Black Armory. So, those include the fact that, number 1, ballistics logs will no longer be removed at reset. Number 2, stack limit for ballistic logs increased to 5 per character. Number 3, weapon frames carried across reset now refund into the following. So, gold weapon frames that you have in your inventory are refunded into 1 ballistics log. Silver weapon frames refunded into 3 modulus reports. And any instance of a radiant matrix will be removed on the weekly reset. and players should stop experiencing the issue where frames are missing from Ada's inventory on a week-to-week basis. Lastly, players may still only purchase up to 2 gold frames per week. But more changes. Drop rate for Black Armory lower increased from 10% to 20% and now requires a successful Forge ignition for a chance to drop. Another change, the quest step that requires players to defeat a high value target on Nessus no longer requires a player to land the final blow. Thank goodness. Modulus reports and ballistic logs now go to the postmaster if lost. Cap on Modulus reports still at 15 per account. Forge emblems will be awarded when completing a forge, no longer requiring a specific bounty to be completed. So frankly, some good changes there, especially, if you haven't been able to do everything one week. You complete the bounty, you get the frame, but then something happens, you can't complete the frame in time. Getting that ballistic log back is a huge quality of life improvement. And guys, that really covers all of the main stuff within this update. I hope you enjoyed, found this informative, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKakis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.